Hey guys, sorry, I didn't know this was on. Welcome to episode one of Bunting Shorts. I had been wanting to do this for a long time. I got really busy, had to get a new phone, a lot of stuff going on. But what I decided to do was my version of an online ministry. And the reason I'm calling it Bunting Shorts, I am pretty short, that's not why, but I wanted to either weekly, bi weekly, or however the intervals work out, I wanted to do uplifting messages that I could put out there to really get people to, embrace God, empower their faith, and be ready for the times we're in. Very specifically, I'll tell you, I believe that we are living in the tribulation right now. Every single seal that's to be broken is standing out there waiting. We've got famine, war, pestilence, and very, very high insecurity in the financial world. I actually import building supplies for a living. I know well how bad the supply chain is broken, and it's distressing. I'm immersed in it every day, and I know, and so you know, I know this is happening, and I also know it's going to be really hard to stop. Bible said it's going to happen, so what I'm trying to do is at least make people aware that it is happening, and what we can do to prolong our time here, or at least to be ready if there is no such thing as prolonging it. And I think that's really important. I don't know why I feel so compelled to tell you this. There's nothing, prophetic about me or even that great, really. But I'll tell you a couple things that at least I think about a lot. I'm a Reformed sinner. I know God loves that story. There's a special place in heaven for those of you that have been righteous all your life. But the biggest fireworks shows, the biggest parties are when people like me get it figured out before it's too late. And if you watched any of my other messages, it's never too late until that last millisecond before you take your last breath. It's never too late. So I want you to keep that in mind. The other reason I decided to do this is because I've gone to a few churches. I do listen to a few online as well, but they're not speaking either well about this or at all. And I'll just give a quick example. One of the most famous pastors in my area very recently spoke. He did a 2 or 3 part series on Revelation, and he very clearly believes, just like I do, that the time of Jesus' return is here. He doesn't necessarily say that we're in the tribulation as I believe, but he does think that we're close. And so his message to his thousands and thousands and thousands of parishioners was to do nothing, that the pre-tribulation rapture will be here and they won't have to worry about anything. Well, first of all, maybe I always wonder, like, maybe God saved me to the very end because I'm not corrupted by what I've been taught. I don't believe there's a pre-tribulation rapture. And the main reason I don't believe it is because I don't read it in the Bible, and that's where I'm getting a lot of my information from. I do listen to people, but I always try to go back to the Bible and reference what I believe. And I'm not seeing it in there. Second of all, if it is true indeed, then first, our most important responsibility is to help others get into that fold. And that means get to work right now. He didn't say that. Secondly, if that is indeed coming, then there's going to be some suffering. And we know about some of the specifics of that too. So we should be gathering resources together, not just for ourselves, but to be able to take care of our neighbors, the poor, whomever might be put in our path. Those are really, really important things to do if you believe that. And I'm not hearing that. So that's why I'm doing this. If you can tell, I feel pretty passionately about it and I believe it. And again, I don't know why I'm so compelled to tell you this, but I feel like I have to. And, if you watched any of my other videos, some pretty crazy and unexplainable stuff has happened to me. And I did one my first video was a message of hope because I saw, in my family and many of our friends, saw signs from beyond this world that were proof to me that there's life beyond this place. And I think that's very hopeful. As a matter of fact, I'm not concerned about dying. And this current scare that we're in, I just think it's funny because if the people of faith really believed what's in the Bible, they'd feel just like I did. It says it right there. You're going to live forever. You might go to hell if you're not careful. But if you get just a couple things right, you'll end up in heaven. So there's nothing to worry about. All your responsibility is in this life is to get there and to help others. That's it. Anyways, I got to get to the message. I don't want to get on my soapbox here, but I wanted to at least spend a little bit of time telling you about that. And again, I meant to do this over a month ago. I had to get a new phone, then I got a new phone. My friend ran over it with a golf cart like 2 weeks after I got it. So I went through a whole long process of getting a new screen. And anyways, I got one at work, so great. Also, sadly, I will tell you that we had a death in our family. My cousin passed away on her 52nd birthday in the middle of the night in her sleep. She went peacefully, and one of the best things I can say about that is that I talked to her. We didn't talk a lot. We were very close. Matter of fact, her daughter was born on my birthday. Her wedding anniversary was on my grandmother's birthday, and we spent a lot of time together as kids. So we were close. But I haven't seen her as much lately, in part because I'm all the way up here in Indiana, and all of my family and my wife's are in North Carolina, so it makes it hard. But I talked to her a lot, particularly about the videos that I did. She was very captivated by them. She was, really curious what the source of it was, and I said, Christine, I don't have all those answers, but I believe it's from God. And she believed that too. And the most important thing about our conversations is no matter what was going on with her, I knew her faith was there. I knew what she believed in. And so as far as where she is now, I don't have to worry about that at all. I know she's in heaven. She had already proclaimed her belief in Jesus Christ. So thankful for that. I'm not going to share a lot of pictures or Bible verses today, but I'm going to share this one because the day that I found out she passed away, in my daily devotionals, I was given a Bible verse, and it's this. It's 1 Samuel 16:7, and I'll put this up on the screen as well. But the Lord said to Samuel, do not look on his appearance or his height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. Now, if you knew my cousin Christine Hurley, there's one thing you could say about her is she had a huge, huge heart. And there was certainly nothing wrong with her physical appearance at all, but it was just so uplifting to me that was something I got on the day of her passing, because I know in God's eyes, she had to be one of his most favorite people. She just had this huge heart, and she connected so many people, especially after my mom passed. I believe one of the reasons she was calling is she was filling that void. So my mom was very much the same way. She wanted to talk to people because she wanted to keep those connections. And even if, it was a late night call or something that was inconvenient, my mom would always take those calls, and Christine was great about making them. And so I'm thankful that she lived that way. And I've noticed on Facebook, so many people that I had no idea she was connected to have made some very, very strong tributes about her life. So anyways, I'm thankful for that. Obviously, it's a tragic loss, and we'll keep her in our memories. But anyways, on to my message. So, I look at where we are today, and I wonder, are we in a mess? Do you feel like things in this country are better or worse than they were, say, 2017, 2015, 2012? I don't know. I think that everybody I've talked to, no matter what their political or spiritual beliefs, believes that things are far, far, far worse than they've ever been. And that's really COVID or not, it's just a sign of the times that we're in. And if I'm right about the fact that we're in the tribulation, there's a lot more of that to come. And so as I look at the people who are in charge, who are directing us, I wonder, are they promoting fear? Are they promoting peace? Are they promoting a reconnection with God? What are they talking about? Because all I hear is, only I have the answer. You need to be scared. You need to do what I say. That doesn't sound like anything I ever heard Jesus say. Not one. So as I look towards the future, I'm trying to be more careful about where I get my information. And I look at a lot of my friends, at least half of them, that are waiting for that right person to come along to give them an answer. And I think the biggest problem we have in this country is we're looking for a political solution, but what we have is a spiritual problem. And it's not going to be solved by anyone in Washington, anybody in our local or even our state governments, because there is no spiritual basis for their leadership. I haven't seen any. And despite what they may tell you, they're not leading that way. And there's a big difference between what people say and what they do. I tend to respond to what people do. I never get emotional about what people say. I think that was the whole thing with the Trump phenomenon. He said a lot of the right things, but he did almost all the same things every other leader has done. So I think, to clearly define where we are, we're in a moral decline, and it represents what it looks like when you remove God from a society. And you don't have to look any further than the Bible to find out how that works out. There is story after story after story of how God allows it. And when he gets fed up, he destroys those people in that country. And if we're not careful, it's going to happen here soon. So, how do we get out of this mess? Do we need more laws? I bet you'd be surprised to know that the U.S., this is an estimate, of course, has more laws combined than the rest of every other country in this world. That blew my mind when I heard that, but I believe it. It is estimated that on average, every American commits 5 felonies per day. 5. That means every one of us could be arrested and thrown into jail for a significant amount of time for something we didn't even know was out there. I find that really concerning. Also, did you know that the U.S. has 20% of the prison population of the entire world? We represent just under 5% of the world's population, but we have 20+% of the world's prison population. This is supposed to be the land of the free, but it's more land of people who are imprisoned, a lot of them falsely. And, when I'm looking at solutions and then I hear things like that, I quickly realize that these political solutions are only going to generate more of that. That's all we've gotten for the last, 20 or 30 years. That's about how long I've really been paying attention, but that's what I see. So, again, this happened. We removed God from our society, and we were a country founded on the belief of God, and we ran from another country because we were persecuted for that. And it's rather ironic that we did the same thing that we ran from 200 years later. So, in my opinion, we need to get back to basics. We need to go back to when we got here, to what worked then. Back in 2000, I think it was 2001, I took a job with United Dominion. It's a real estate investment trust, specializes in owning, developing, and renovating apartment communities. And I was in Atlanta. I had just taken over of a kind of a rougher portfolio there. And they brought in a CEO named Tom Toomey, who's still there now. He was brought in to kind of change them from a successful regional company into a national player. And one of the things that he was going to do was really just kind of get rid of some of that old B and C class style apartments they got and get more into the development side and more into bigger cities because the population centers there were going to grow faster than a B and a C type market. And one of the smartest guys I've ever worked for. He's actually still there, so he's one of the longest tenured guys too. But we had this huge meeting in Orlando right when I, started. I was probably, I don't know, 2 months into the job. I hadn't had a chance to make a bad or a good name for myself. I'm just there. But we go down to this meeting and we're all in this conference room and he's asking, for ideas. And any guys, that know me well, know I have no shortage of confidence, whether it be false or not. I'll tell you what I'm thinking. So he asked for some ideas. I get up and I'm just like, spewing off every idea I've ever had about property management. And I sucked the oxygen out of that room. I get done, I'm like, bang, thinking I had just solved every problem that the company had and may ever have. And I kind of sat down. I had this, smug look on my face. And Tom stands up and he just gives me this look like, sit down, boy, because it's a man's time to talk. And he just said, hey, those are great ideas. I always find myself challenged to do more than 3 things at one time. He's like, every time I try to do 4, 5, 6, I just screw them all up. And he sat down and I was like, I took it at the time, I kind of took it personal. I was like, oh gosh, these like my 30 ideas are just trash. But what he was actually just saying, and I actually applied this in my life, really from that moment on, was keep things simple. He was saying that, if you got all these great ideas, you pick the 1, the 2, or the 3 max best ones and apply those. And that's it. When you succeed at those, then you move on to the next. And eventually you'll get through your list. But when you try to tackle big, huge problems, you have to take them off bite size. And I think that is a lesson that we could all live by. We all overcomplicate things. So, I looked at our problems and I said, well, gosh, like what reference point can we have if this is a tribulation or if we're under God's judgment? How do we figure this out? Well, I think the easiest thing is to go right at the beginning, go to the Bible. So look at the story of Adam and Eve. Now, God creates man and woman, puts us in paradise. We have everything that we'd ever want and need right there. And he said, there's one rule. You may not eat from that tree. And of course, we're fallen. We break that one rule. And they go from living in paradise to Eve is cursed with painful childbirth. And Adam is cursed with, hard work and toiling to grow the food that they need to eat. And, just a short time later, they have 2 kids and one murders the other one. These are like heavy, heavy prices to pay for breaking one single rule. It was the only rule they had, and they could not keep from breaking it. So fast forward to the story of Exodus. We've got the Israelites who are in Egypt. They've been under slavery and oppression in Egypt for 400 years. That's a long time. I look at just the last few months and feel like, how much more can we take? But they dealt with that for 400 years. It's something I actually learned recently that I want to share. Israelites, when the Bible was originally translated, it was in Greek. Israelites mean children of God. And I point that out to tell you that when we talk about the story of the Israelites, we're talking about all the children of God. So if you're a believer, if you are of God, you are an Israelite. It's absolutely zero reference to a geographical area. And a lot of times, we pledge allegiance to certain areas or a certain people or a political entity is maybe the best way, the state of. But the Israelites were all of us. And I think it's really important as we go forward to think about it in that terms, because it wasn't those people that are in that political state now that failed, it's all of us. So they, as you know, God brought Moses into the picture. He kind of had it rough to start out, but he eventually comes back and through a signs of wonders and miracles is able to convince Pharaoh to let him go. And even after that happens, Pharaoh can't take it, and Moses parts the sea and dumps it right on top of him. It's pretty amazing stuff. And beyond that, God travels with them in a cloud of fire throughout the desert. And they still mess it up bad. That blows me away, because we don't have any of those kind of things happening in our lives right now, at least that we don't all see, and they still got it wrong. It's kind of scary to think about. One of the things that I'll point out, this is also some new information, is that they spent 40 years in the desert. Now, if you look at the area where they were on a map, it was an 11-day transit, period. Now, I've been to a desert. It's not a fun place. I don't know if I'd want to spend 11 days there, but I can be sure to tell you I would not spend 40. So, there's a big lesson in that too. Had they gotten any of it right, they would have been pushed into the promised land a lot sooner. But they did some horrific things, and every time they did, God punished them, and sometimes harshly. He mentioned many times that he was sorry he ever created us. And I believe that. We're seeing a lot of that right now. But, some of the stories you could think about is when Moses goes up to Mount Sinai, he's going up there to get the 10 tablets. And those were basically the 10 fundamental rules for the Israelites to follow. And he's going up there for 40 days, but he can't even get up there just a few. God gets so angry and sends it back down. Moses' brother Aaron had gathered up every bit of jewelry in the village and melted it down and turned it to a golden calf, and they were worshiping this calf. Now, think about that. Like, they have God traveling around with them, and somehow this happens. I think it just underscores how hard it is for us. We are fallen by nature, and to get through the gates, this narrow path that we have to take, it's not easy. So you got to try. I mean, that is the biggest part of that lesson. But they got those 10 rules. They couldn't follow one, which was just worship one God. And they didn't follow the 10 either. And so mostly as you read through the Old Testament, you'll hear story after story after story of how they did something so terrible and God destroyed a lot of them or a few of them, whatever it was. Every story was a little bit different, but the key is that he reacted pretty angrily when they messed up. And on most cases, Moses or Aaron or someone had to step in and beg God to stop, or he would have destroyed us all right then. So another thing I found interesting is when they finally get to the Jordan, they're going to cross over, not one of the old people was left. He only took the young people with him. I think that was just because they were so corrupted from the journey, and he said, I can't have any of these people here because I'm scared what they'll do, and I'll have to destroy every one of them. So we fast forward to the time of Jesus, and obviously we know things didn't work out great there either. He was only here for 33 years. His people ended up being the one to demand that he be murdered, and pretty sad story that we would have God in this world and then demand for him to be removed from it. But it was part of prophecy, and so perhaps it was meant to happen. I don't know. But, the way I look at it as far as how we move forward is, so we broke one rule in the Garden of Eden and basically broke 10 in the desert and beyond. And Jesus came back and said, all right, I'm going to lower the bar for you guys. If I don't, no one's getting into heaven. And so he gave us 2 rules, and they're very, very simple. Love God and love thy neighbor. And that's where we're at. So what I'm advocating isn't very hard. It doesn't require you to go to a doctor. It doesn't require you to stay inside your home or even wear a mask. It's just those two things. And, you may not believe me, but there's example after example in the Bible where when people were repentant and they followed these two rules, everything went great for them. They prospered. They thrived. And I often wonder why we're not hearing much of this these days. It is confusing. So I think that we need to do these things, and we need to reconnect with God. We need to get on our knees. All of us are sinners. Every one of us. My good friend John Webb says, everyone sinned except for Jesus. Some say, well, John the Baptist didn't sin, but he instructed me, he said, well, not all sins were recorded. It's important not to record some sins, and there were only a handful of people, but there were some where it was important not to. And as you read the Bible, I think you'll understand more what I mean as I say that. But we need to honor and serve him. And I've found more and more people these days telling me that God doesn't exist. And I just laugh. If God doesn't exist, somebody's got a lot of explaining to do. Look around you. Where did all this come from? Now, I don't know if any of you have heard about CERN, but I think it's in Sweden, somewhere in that part of the world at least, is an atom collider. Basically, it smashes particles together. And what we're told about it, at least, we'll never really know what goes on there, but what we're told about it, at least, is that it is where they are recreating the Big Bang, the beginning of life. And I listened to the science very recently on YouTube, go on and on and on about all the things they discovered. He was so excited, and it was this scientific talk. This is very, very difficult for me to understand, but I was starting to get the sense that he believed that they had become God or like God because they had done this thing. And the guy interviewing him, it's just absolutely classic. He's like, well, wow, that's really amazing. He was like, so if this is indeed how the universe was created, where did the first two particles come from? And this brilliant, guy turns into a stuttering mess. He had absolutely no answer for that. And that's some pretty big proof. But something I do, and I encourage you to do, is go outside. If you don't believe there's God, put your phone away, go into a wooded area. That's the best place to do it. And just sit quietly, close your eyes for 2 or 3 minutes, and just listen to everything going on. And at the end of that time, open your eyes and look around. You'll be amazed, because you'll connect what you hear with what you can see, and you'll realize that there's this interconnected world that we live in where one thing relies on the next and the next and the next and the next. It's a perfect creation. Absolutely perfect. And I love being outside because I always feel like, when I'm out, that's how I reconnect. I go for long runs outside, and a lot of times I'll end up in the woods, and I'll find somewhere to just stop and pray or contemplate, meditate, whatever. But that's what I do. It's amazing. Amazing. There's just so many more animals and things out there than you ever know. And we're so busy flying around in our cars with our phones to our face that we miss all of that. So I'm almost done here. I know I said I was going to keep this short, but this is the first one, so cut me some slack. What do these things look like? Let's talk about love God first. So it doesn't have to be at a church. Again, I don't want to judge here, but if we're in the tribulation and we're not being led correctly through it, then some of the blame of where we're at has to fall on the church. So it's okay. I'd be pretty picky about where you go these days. I think that's really important. But I connect very closely with God on a one-on-one basis, and that's what I think a big answer can be. Certainly, there's some great home church movements out there. So we're told in Scripture that God loves when we gather together and pray together, and so I think there's an important place for that too. But again, you just want to find people, I think, that you see eye to eye with, or as close as you can. We don't have to agree on everything. I mean, that's one of the fallacies about today's world, is everybody expects all of us to do this one thing, and the world wasn't made that way. But I don't think it'd be healthy for you to spend a lot of time in prayer with people that you're at arms with. I think that would be very unhealthy, actually. But when you pray, I know I go through this too. You hear certain people pray, and you're like, all right, I can't pray like that. Like they know how to do it too well. I'll be honest with you. I don't think there's a perfect formula. God, more than anything, wants a connection with us. He's our Father. He loves us. He doesn't wish anything bad to happen to us, but He wants you to come to Him for anything. Do you need a Lamborghini? I mean, maybe you do. Maybe it's part of God's will for you to have one, and that's fine. I hope He gives you one. I do. You have to ask Him for it. However big or small it is, go to God and you talk to Him just like your father or your friend, because number one, he just wants a connection with you. I do think it's important to honor Him and respect Him, obviously, because He did create all this, and His Son will judge us soon enough. So you do need to speak with honor and reverence when you talk to Him. I think that part's very important too. But speak from your heart, because as I told you earlier, that's what He sees, and that's probably the easiest way to connect with Him. And do it daily, or do it 10 times a day, whatever it is. I mean, honestly, the more you can do it now, I think the better, because we need that. And then love thy neighbor. Walking sugar next door, or loaning your neighbor something, that's absolutely essential to a proper working society. But I don't think that's exactly what God meant when He said, love thy neighbor. Those of you that know, I work with some of our neighbors here in Indianapolis who have fallen on some hard times. And there's a lot of homeless people in every city. Most cities have a significant portion of children in high school or middle school that are homeless. We have here, I think, 1,500 at any given time. We have kids going to school without food. Of course, they're getting it there now because of COVID, but there's a lot of hunger, a lot of suffering. Rents and houses are through the roof, which if you're at the bottom end of the spectrum, you almost don't have anywhere to live. So I think when He says love thy neighbor, you're called to go and help those people. If there's somebody without a home, without food, without clothing in the winter, in your city, they're your neighbor. You're called to help them. And I think that is, out of all that we're supposed to do, that's probably one of the most important and biggest responsibilities we have. Especially if you've been given a lot like me and trusted with that, you have to return it. It's actually, you may think you earned it and you did all this stuff, and that money's yours, but it is God's money. He created everything here, and if you have more of it than somebody else, you're blessed, but you're borrowing it. You're just holding it for God. So you have to do something good with it. For those of you that listened to my second video about my personal story, you know that there was a period of time where I was extremely broke, like destitute broke. And at that time, I didn't have a lot of money to give, but I have time, and every one of us does. I'm a busy guy. I got 2 kids in high school and a business that's taking off. So I don't have a lot of time, but I find time, and I think you can too. And listen, I'm not trying to guilt you into all this stuff, because when you do it, you'll gain a lot of satisfaction. And I certainly like getting my kids stuff for Christmas. That feels good. They want something. It's great to be able to be in a position to provide that for them. But I really get true satisfaction from being able to do something for somebody that they appreciate so deeply that they can't even speak. And we had a guy show up, and we feed people every Sunday. I'm not out there every Sunday, but the ministry that I work with, we feed people every Sunday. And it's about 2 months ago, we met a guy out there. He was in his early 60s. He was newly homeless, and The guy was just really, really troubled because he was lost. As I told everybody when we got done, he wasn't supposed to be there. And he knew he wasn't supposed to be there. So he was just scared to death. And can you imagine at 60, what are your work prospects? You don't have any options at that age. So anyways, I spent some time with him. I prayed for him. He immediately cried. We had happened to we don't bring clothes as much in the summertime because it's not as urgent as like winter, but we had some clothes and I was able to give him like 2 pairs of jeans and I think like 2 or 3 shirts, so he had something to change into. But I mean, the guy's just like breaking down in tears when we finally like got him composed and, he's feeling good. And we were trying to schedule some time for him to come in so we could help him because we have a lot of solutions to housing, work, spiritual counseling, drug abuse, all these things. But, he had an immediate need of just housing. But anyways, we get to the end of this serving line, somebody brought in ice cream. And they brought like toppings and like Hershey syrup. I mean, this is stuff like might show up in my house once a week, especially with the kids. We like our desserts, but this guy absolutely broke down and he couldn't stop bawling long enough to eat it. I wouldn't want to ask him when the last time he'd had that was, but I think about it almost every day. I mean, this guy's like breaking down over having a bowl of ice cream. And it's not fair that that's the world we live in, but it just is. So I implore you to spend some time connecting with your neighbors. And again, don't single them out to the people that live immediately around you. Go out in your city, do some good. It'll make you feel great and it helps. And if you need any ideas about any of this stuff, like we've got some great ones. We're actually building some discipleships, or that's our plan in 2022, because we've got a good thing. The couple that I work for, Matt and Sandy Gay, they're a big time inspiration in my life. And they want to disciple others. They were taught by others how to do this. 11 years going and we're building, and they want to help other people. They don't want anything for it. They just want to show their cookbook, their secret sauce. This is how we built it, and this is what you can do in your city. And I bet probably every city in this country probably needs it right now. So to wrap this up, it's already longer than I wanted it to be, but I'll just say let's stop waiting for somebody to solve our problems. Let's quit waiting for somebody in a political situation who has no spiritual guidance to solve our problems. Let's solve them ourselves. I just gave you 2 simple things that we can all do today. You don't have to wait 1 more minute to start. We can do them today. And I guarantee you, if we do them, things can change. God created this world, and he can give us as much time as we want. I think there's another fallacy about the tribulations, exactly this many days. It's going to be this many days. And then I don't believe that's exactly how it works at all. As a matter of fact, I've promoted this book before, Final Day by Rick Wiles. I've read so many Bible prophecy books. It's mind-boggling. But that's the one book that really clearly spells it out. And I know God could give us a reprieve, but we got to make enough noise here to do that. And if we keep in the cycle that we're in today, I don't know if we deserve it. I don't. But I believe that, if you give me 90 days, if we got half the country to do just the 2 things I mentioned, that are free, by the way, we get more time. And we need to spread this across the world because, again, as I tell you, we're in the tribulation time. One thing people don't realize, I communicate with people across the world. This same exact playbook is in play. We have a one world government right now. Everybody's doing the same thing. And I think a lot of people are missing that. But we can fix it. We can have more time. We can change things. But we have to start ourselves. We have to start in our cities, in our own neighborhoods. There's no fix in Washington or Brussels or anywhere else. It starts right in your backyard. So I hope you found this uplifting. I really do. That's how I meant it. And be concerned about the times. Only in that we don't have 100 years. maybe. I don't know. Do what you can today. Be a blessing to your neighbors, and look forward for more of this stuff. I think I have like 10 more of these written out. Again, the challenge for me is going to be able to find the time to do it. I wanted to do this one almost 2 months ago, so I got to free up myself. Maybe sleep less. I don't know. All right. Take care. Thanks.